Warning, the following podcast has been classified as insanely lucrative. Listener discretion is advised.
I love hearing both the success and failure stories so we can essentially improve as we go on. I think there's more to be learned from a failure than there is from success, right?
Your attention, please. Listening to the AM/PM podcast may cause recurring revenue streams and unfair advantages over your competitors. Other side effects may include fatter wallets, fired bosses, and longer vacations. Listen at your own risk. Here's your host, seven-figure entrepreneur and online marketing madman, Manny Coates. Manny Coates.
Hello, and welcome to AM/PM, the podcast having everything to do with Amazon private label. I'm super excited to have you guys with me. I'm calling this the AM/PM podcast because the whole idea for me is to create passive and recurring income at all hours of the day, 24 hours a day, during the AM, during the PM, so therefore there's a name, AM/PM. By the way, I should probably introduce myself. My name is Manny Coates, and I'll be your host through all of these episodes. I want to talk about a few things that we're going to be covering in the coming podcasts. Things like how to source products, including the email templates that you'll send out to suppliers or customers, or if you got some complaints, bad reviews, things like that. How do you respond to those? How to set up your company name and brand names. These are way more important than you think. The tools and services that you can use to save tons of hours each day, right? So using something for 1 hour that can replace 8 hours worth of work. How to get your products inspected before they're actually shipped out to you or to Amazon. The best ways to get your products shipped to you and why you should use those. What else? Let's see, making sure you're protected financially with your first order when you're using a new supplier, right? It's always a kind of a nervous scenario when you're sending thousands of dollars to some company you've never done business with. So what's the best way of approaching that and handling it? What products should you avoid and why? At all costs. There's some products that newbies, beginners should probably just stay away from so that they can get their feet wet and start with something that is on a positive note. How to outrank your competitors on Amazon, the tactics and techniques and the steps that you need to do that. How to outsell your competitors even if your price is higher, right? It's not always a low price game. You don't have to sell something for $1, $2, $10 less than a competing product if you employ certain strategies. The amount of products that you need to order, how many should that be? A lot of people ask, well, should I order 100 products, 1,000 products? There's things you have to consider before ordering your products to kind of factor in how many you're going to get. And we'll talk all about those things. Another question would be how to ship the products in terms of should it be shipped directly to your house or to Amazon? The pros and cons to that. How about your product ideas? They might be getting stolen from you without you even knowing about it. And I'm going to show you one of the ways that I'd say 9 out of 10 people make this mistake, and they're just kind of giving away their product ideas without even knowing about it. How to know down to the dollar what your competitors are selling each month on their products. This is good to keep an eye on, keep track of your competitors, as well as finding new markets. You can find out, hey, this product here is making 10 grand a month or 15 grand, and it's something I want to get into. What do all the acronyms stand for, right? It's going to be really confusing for people that are just getting into this. What does FOB mean, and PPC, and BSR, and all those other acronyms? We're going to talk about all of those. Amazon hijackers. Most people they probably have never even heard of this term, but what are they, and how do you prevent these guys from taking over your listings? And it's happening more and more every week now. What are the hidden costs that you should know about when you're private labeling? There's a lot of little things, right? So we're going to go over all those details. Mistakes many people make when creating their packaging. There's so many things that you can just mess up on. You forget to add one thing, and then the product can't be imported, or Amazon rejects it. There's a lot of things. So talking about that, the stickers, right? The stickers and the codes that you need on your products. Do you have to have a UPC code? Do you have to have other very specific codes on the product packaging? We'll talk about that. And geez, man, I can go on, and I will in future episodes. So let's just say this right now. If you can, just tap that subscribe button, click it. Make sure that you don't miss any of these podcasts. And I promise you there'll be a golden nugget in at least one of the podcasts that you listen to. So who am I and why does it really matter? Well, I'm a serial entrepreneur, probably just like yourself. And I love challenges, both for fun and for business. Maybe that's why I'm an adrenaline junkie and just love being involved with, really challenging sports. And I think that kind of transfers over to the business side of things. I've jumped into multiple industries pretty much with no experience. And so I'm self-taught, so to speak, right? I had a nice cushy finance job before I started my own business. And then it's another story that I'll say for another episode, but I decided to start my first business, which was in the 3D animation sector. And this was back when there were no real courses on the subject. So again, I was self-taught there. I built up several businesses in this market, and I ended up selling them. Moved to San Diego, and then later I started an online sales and marketing business with no experience. I built that up to over 50 people in that company here in the U.S. and about a dozen or so freelancers outside of the United States. That company, we built it up to about just over $5 million per year. And it was during this time that I also started dabbling with Alibaba back before pretty much anybody knew what Alibaba was. This was almost, about 10 years ago. So after that, I started an online supplement company, again with zero experience in the health supplement industry. That company went on to generate just over 6 figures per month in revenue, so was very happy with that. After selling that particular company, I started multiple mobile games companies developing gaming applications, and I still run that. That one's still going. Again, I had no experience with this particular industry, and it took me a few years to get it to where it is right now. It's essentially on autopilot, where I have a team of programmers and designers making games on a monthly basis. I've got 2 offices overseas that are split again for the programmers on one side, the designers in another, and we've made over 200 games. So I've also done some speaking engagements in the realm of mobile applications at some high-end mobile app conferences. So I'm always crazy busy. I always have something going on. I just love it. I think it's awesome. But you're probably asking, well, hey, if you're so busy and you've got a successful app business, why are you jumping into something else, the Amazon private label business or this podcast? Well, honestly, I want the challenge. I think it's fun. And like most of you who have, a primary job, I'd imagine, right? You have a primary job and you're going to be doing this part-time. I have another business, my apps business. So this will be done alongside that. And I think together we can find the time to make them both work. I also love to learn. And this time, though, with Amazon, I'm not going in blind. You see, I can apply almost all of the previous experiences for my other businesses to this because like I mentioned, I've dealt with Alibaba for close to a decade. The online marketing and sales experience that I had in my other company is going to be invaluable. There was just tons of pay-per-click marketing that we were doing back in the day with AdWords, over $200,000 per month just on buying traffic. And even the mobile side of things will help since everything's now going mobile. I've been dealing with outsourcing to free up just a ton of time now for many years, and that's also going to become valuable or very, very valuable in this new Amazon private label venture. I've got friends as well that are just crushing it. I mean, they're killing it with Amazon, and they've been doing this for a while. So I've been masterminding with those guys, and it's just constantly opening my eyes to new and creative ways of doing things with Amazon. And honestly, it's almost an unfair advantage when I'm hearing some of this stuff. One guy, for example, has over 1 million SKUs. I didn't even think that was possible, but believe me, he's got this. So doing the podcast, it forces me to stay current. This is one of the main reasons why I want to do it. I need to know what the best tactics are, the best tools, to know, what Amazon allows and doesn't, any of their terms of service updates, and essentially just to grow my business as quickly as possible. With the podcast, networking with hundreds or even thousands of like-minded individuals, it's gonna help things. I'm gonna learn new things, and every podcast, I think, I'm gonna walk away with something new and valuable. And I hope you guys will too, right? There's always going to be, as I mentioned earlier, that golden nugget to be found. So I love hearing both the success and failure stories so we can essentially improve as we go on. I think there's more to be learned from a failure than there is from success, right? Everybody's talking about if they've got a podcast or they're selling a course or they're training or ebooks or whatever it is, there's always the success stories. Oh, I made this amount and I did this, but they don't typically talk about failures. And I think that with the failures come really valuable lessons, and then you apply those newly learned lessons to your business, and then you do a lot better. And with this podcast, I'll be documenting and sharing those successes and failures, and hopefully, way more successes than failures. But at least I'm not going to hide anything. You'll be able to see it real time as we move along. So I'm all about, as I mentioned earlier, the tools of the trade, finding tools that allow me to do 8 hours of work with just maybe 1 hour. And I'm already using some tools that are pretty amazing. So I'll be covering some of that stuff. And well, I think we should set a goal. I think goals are important, and so I'm going to say it now. My goal here is to generate $25,000 in sales within the first 90 days of starting, as of this first podcast right now. So it's on record, me saying 25 grand first 90 days, and I think it's totally doable. My second goal, a little bit more long-term goal, is to have the business hit $250,000 in sales by the end of the first year. Okay, so it's going to start off slower in the beginning, but as it'll less per month is what I mean. But by the end of the year, it should be much larger amounts, and I want the total to be $250,000. And I think it's totally doable. And I'll be sharing this all with you guys. Again, the ups and the downs, the tactics that are being used, the tools, how everything's being done. And man, I just hope that we not only reach that goal, but we can crush the $250,000 goal by a ton by the end of the year. By the way, guys, I mean, those are my goals. You need to set realistic expectations based on your resources, and I'll be talking about how much I'm spending to do what I need to do, so you can adjust from there, and I think everything will work out. By the way, I'll be doing things that in many cases are the opposite of what the big training courses that you might have heard about teach you. You'll see why I'm going to be doing this, why they work to generate more money with less work. And yeah, it works in so many other industries. I can't imagine why it wouldn't work here. So once this gets out, I think you're going to see more and more people doing it. But those that are listening to the podcast and applying it early on are going to have that, that the first movers benefit, I guess you could say. So stay tuned and find out what those things are. And since I love challenges, in addition to good products that I'm going to be sourcing and selling, right? We always want those best products. I do kind of want to throw in a couple really tough products or things that people have said, definitely stay away from. I'm not talking about bad products that are going to get you potentially sued because of liability or something, because they can get hurt. But I'm talking about a product maybe in a super crowded market that it seems like it would be impossible to get any kind of good traction in. And I want to get those, and I want to apply some tactics to it. And these might be some things that don't do so well. They might actually even fail. But if we can apply some really cool techniques to it and they do well, imagine the doors that opens up, right? I mean, if you can get into a super crowded, competitive market, imagine what you can do on this, the low-hanging fruit stuff that has almost no competition. So stay tuned again for that as well. So that's about it. Please do subscribe. Click that subscribe button if you're on the podcast page now. And your ratings do help as well. If you can just rate this, I'd really appreciate it. And remember, these podcasts, I know we're super busy, but you just pop your earbuds in, and while you're driving to work, or you're taking the dog on a walk, or you're working out, taking a shower, whatever it might be, right? And I mean, that's what I do. I swear to God, I have a little Bluetooth speaker that sticks to the wall inside the shower, and when I get in there, I punch it up and listen to some podcasts, or at least a portion of a podcast, I should say. I'm not in there for an hour, but I'm doing my part to conserve water here in California, I promise. So anyways, it's easy. I mean, stay fit, right? Jump on the elliptical machine or treadmill or whatever for 45 minutes and listen to your podcast. So that's about it, guys. Again, if you can just subscribe and then rate the podcast, I'd really appreciate it. I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the AM/PM podcast hosted by Manny Coates. For more information, insider tools, and to get the resources mentioned in this episode, visit ampmpodcast.com.